Hello, friends. I'm Mrs. Hood, and welcome to Teachers of All Kinds. TAC is a podcast where teachers can benefit one another by sharing our unique experiences as individuals who also happen to be teachers. My guest for this episode of the podcast is Dr. Desiree Alexander. Desiree is an award-winning educator who has been in the educational field since 2002. She is the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, LLC, and the Regional Director of North Louisiana for the Associated Professional Educators of Louisiana. Dr. Alexander is lifetime certified in Louisiana in secondary English education and holds a doctorate in education with a concentration in educational leadership from Lamar University. You can connect with her at educatoralexander.com, on Twitter at educatoralex, or on other social media platforms, including YouTube, at Educator Alexander. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do too. And now, on to episode 12. All right, I'm here with Dr. Desiree Alexander. Hi, Desiree, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
Good. So last time we talked, we were talking about the hurricanes, and I wanted to ask you, do hurricanes happen that bad every year? Is it getting worse, like the fires here in the Pacific Northwest?
It depends on the year. This has definitely been a stellar year, if that's a pretty positive word to use for it, but a stellar year. For hurricanes, especially hitting this exact same area of Louisiana, within 2 weeks, which is insane. And the strength of the hurricanes have been pretty crazy. So
Wow.
I would say it's getting, if this year is any indication, it's getting worse.
Wow. And this year we had some pretty bad fires in the Northwest as well. It seems like it gets a little bit worse here and there, but
yeah.
2020, right? It's just a year of years.
Yeah, it can just go away. I'm fine with 2020 being done. Yeah.
So are the school districts in your area, are they teaching online for the foreseeable future, or have they started doing in person or hybrid?
Actually in my area, I'm actually in North Louisiana now. And the hurricanes and all that definitely affected South Louisiana way more. But I have a bunch of family and friends and in South Louisiana. But so with North Louisiana, or just Louisiana in general, is very hit or miss. So it depends, one district right here, one parish right here could be doing something, and the next parish is doing something completely different. So some are doing the all virtual, some are doing all in person, some are doing hybrid. What I found just across the nation, that world actually, is hybrid means something different to each person. So now sometimes hybrid means, A day, B day. Some kids come on this day, some kids come on that day. And then I've seen hybrid mean you're teaching the students on the computer at the exact same time that you're teaching the students in person.
Wow.
Which is insane. But, teachers, they're trying to do it. Trying to do it. So it just depends on what parish, what district you go to.
Okay. And well, here with COVID, we're all online in my school district, at least in Portland Public Schools, and we're online for the first semester, at least for now, because I'm at a high school, but everyone thinks it'll be the whole year. Meanwhile, where I used to live in Eastern Washington, because I live in Vancouver, Washington, so I'm right across the river from Portland. But where I used to work in Eastern Washington, their COVID cases are actually worse, but they're going back to hybrid or in-person instruction because, I don't know why, actually. I think it's a community pushback,
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. With going all virtual, did you guys, are you having any kind of protests? Are you having any kind of complaints?
I know there was a protest recently where parents, mostly organized by parents, I think. And I heard, I could be wrong, but I heard they weren't totally socially distancing and using masks, but they're complaining that, we need to go back to in-person. Parents can't babysit their kids and run their learning anymore, which I get. It's kind of like the lesser of two evils, depending how you look at it, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't have any kids of my own, so I don't feel their pain.
Right, and I don't either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not, there's not an easy solution. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a there's a magic pill, someone would have sold it by now. So there's
Right.
not an easy solution to this.
Right.
I get both sides, kind of what you were saying. Yeah. I also think if we would have just settled down throughout the summer, we may not be in this situation.
Right.
So, I do have some strong opinions
Oh yeah.
on that. And if we just would have stopped and just
Had a better, quicker response.
because I was like, okay, by August, we'll start slowly opening up around mid-July. It was like June, stuff was opening up. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? It's really hard because, well, I remember the gym was closed for like 6 months. But then it started opening up again. And I'm like, are we ready for this? I don't know. And
I hope I don't know. It's one of those things where you don't want to be negative because you don't want it to, like, you want to be shocked. Like you want us to open back up and nothing happens. Like I would be overjoyed for that, so you don't want to be like, well, things are going to get worse, because you really don't want that to happen. I think it is a realism, I think it's being realistic that if you don't solve the issue and you ignore the issue and just keep doing what you want to do, that the issue will get worse. I think that's just a logical conclusion. But but I hope not. All I can keep saying is I hope not.
But it seems like we're years away from any kind of vaccine. Even if a vaccine came out, it would have to be distributed widely, and that would take years after it's even developed. So it's kind of like, can we really wait? And will the economy will it end up being more harm to the economy and people's livelihoods in the long run if we wait 10 years or something to reopen everything? I don't know.
Yeah. Again, I don't think there's any easy solution, or someone would have come up with it and probably sold it.
Yeah.
But there's no easy solution. It's one of those things where it's a cycle, right? You can say, is it going to be detrimental to our livelihoods if we can't open up fully? And then you can go just around that cycle and say, well, if you don't have any lives to protect, what's the point?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a circle. It's a circle of, like I said, if there's an easy solution or a one-sided solution, then yeah. So it's not an easy solution.
For sure. And while we're distance teaching, how can we make that equitable, or is that an okay replacement for in-person teaching, in your opinion?
What other option do we have?
Right.
So, whether it's equitable, whether it's comparable, I should say, because equitable is something different, but whether it's comparable, what, no school, virtual school, or in-person school? Like what other solution do you have? So there it doesn't, I feel like that question, like, it doesn't matter whether it's comparable, you have no other solution. You have either in-person, virtual, or no school at all. So I think at least some school is best in all situations. I don't think there's any replacement for in-person education. Now, I do think that all learners are different. I think that one of the good things to come out of this situation is education has been stagnant for so long and for so many years. It's really the longest period in history that education has been so stagnant that something huge, hasn't like really shaken us. And I know we think of like No Child Left Behind, and it was pretty, it made, of course, a big impact, but it wasn't as big as segregation. It wasn't as big as multi-gender classrooms. It wasn't as big, like these big revolutions that hit education. We just really haven't had that in a long time. So I feel like it's definitely overdue. And I think one of the good things to come out of this pandemic when it deals with education is I don't think we're ever going to be the same. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm one of those people where I am an extrovert in certain situations, but I am a dire introvert. Like I'm okay with not talking to people.
Me too.
It sounds really bad, but I really am. And that's not, and I hate the misconception around introverts, like we hate people, and that's just so not true. But I am okay with, being by myself for long periods of time.
Right.
And that kind of thing. I do need that time to recharge. So I thrive in an online environment when I'm learning. Like I'm fine with that. I thrive in it more than the in-person. So I think it's going to help students like me have another option, where it used to be kind of it was slowly coming in, like virtual schools and, but I felt like when it first started coming in, it was like, oh, it's a virtual school for someone that doesn't have the option of going to school, or it's more of like an alternative program.
Right.
And now, I feel like it was just starting to kind of come into play for all students. And I feel like we're never going to go back. Like, I don't think any district is not going to have a virtual option for the rest of their existence. And I think that's kind of cool.
You think all districts will probably have some kind of option for virtual for the district? That's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we are not going to stay online forever, but we're also not going to go back to in person as the only option. I think
as the only exactly. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think we are going to see an influx of virtual school. I think we're going to have to do very big, deep questions about what that means for funding. Do those students count as a whole separate campus? Do those students count as their home campus? I think it's going to be a lot of different issues that arise from this. And we're going to have to ask some questions and do some answering. I also think one of the things that I got upset about during this whole pandemic in education is, especially when like August and September hit and students were expected to go back to school, was the question of, school being a safe haven for our students, and school being the only place where they have someone that cares about them, and school being the only place where they can get a hot meal, and school being, all of these things our students. And if you've stepped foot in a classroom, it's true, right? That is a reality for our students. But I think where I got upset was, I think at least in the United States, because that's where my perception is from, we do a very good job with picking the issues that we want to fight for and ignoring the deeper issues. Yeah. So it was like, oh, all this stuff. And I'm kind of in the background. I know I'm not the only one, but in the background going, well, does anybody see a problem in that? Like, does anybody see a problem that is the only place that a child can get a hot meal? And that is the only place that a child feels that, like, we're going to ignore the deeper issues of society and just say, go back to school. And that's not okay. It's not okay. We should be questioning deeper, like, okay, well, why is that the case? Why is that the case? And how could we work on that? And not just education, everybody. Like, why is that the case? And maybe we should work on that a little bit more. But it's much easier to pick out this little, teachers.
Treat the symptom.
Education. Yeah. And so, yeah.
I absolutely agree. I mean, when you say school is important, because, for example, teachers are mandated reporters, I think is the term. And there's less reports being made to CPS when schools are closed. Okay, That is a problem, but
Yeah.
the deeper cause of that problem isn't that school is closed. It's that, whatever, we need to
That
ask
abuse is
why.
happening in homes and we're
Right.
ignoring it.
And we're not treating the root cause of this issue. We're
Yeah.
just kind of scared that the little band-aid we put on it is no longer there.
Yep. And we love shiny stuff. So we love whatever the issue of the moment is,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen that throughout the years, it's gun violence. And then is this, and then is, anyways, just whatever is the shiny thing at the moment. And then we completely forget that and we go to something else and we never truly work on any issues at all.
Mm. The issue of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And there's so many of them too. And I feel like if we could just stick with one or two, but there's also more. I feel like some of the issues we have in our modern age is that the population is skyrocketed from what it used to be.
Yeah.
Of course, with more people, it's harder to maybe organize, or maybe it's easier to organize, depending how you look at it, to bring about change.
Well, I think I don't know. I think there's many, many different issues. And when I say that, I'm completely and utterly looking in the mirror as well.
Mm-hmm.
When I have these conversations with my friends, I'm like, me too. I'm talking to myself too. I'm not excluded from this.
Right.
And I think you have like different subsects of the population. I think one, we get so bogged down in everything. There's so many issues to fight for. We just give up. We don't fight for any issue because it's so overwhelming, and we don't know how can my little self help. And well, I'm just gonna cover my head and watch Netflix. Like I can't deal with it. And I think that's a normal human reaction when you try to take on everything at once. You're trying to take on climate change and racial issues and gender and all the sexist and homophobic, and you're trying to take on everything, and it gets overwhelming because we do have so many issues in this world. So I feel like we have that subset, and then we have the kindness subset, which is like, well, I'm just going to kind of bury the issue and just say, kill everybody with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's great and it has a place, because I do believe in the kindness movement 100%, that's not the solution for everything. But I think, again, it's like, well, that's all I can, that's where my mind is. That's what I can control. And we have that. And then we have, people who really are fighting for the causes, and thank God for them, because if not, I don't know where we would be. And people speaking out, and saying enough is enough. Like, enough is enough. I'm going to pick this one cause that I can do something about, that I can donate money to, that I can get up and protest for, that I can, speak out against. And that's going to be my baby, because that's all I can handle right now.
And some people say, I stay away from politics. And I think when they say that, they mean they're overwhelmed with all the issues, because politics is everywhere. It's in everything.
I think it's a cop out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
like everything is not, like you said, everything is politics and everything is not politics.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can say, killing someone in the middle of the street, that's not political, that's humanity. So let's stop playing.
Right.
You can say what you want to say, and you can hide behind whatever excuse you want to hide behind.
Right.
But yeah, that's just somebody human just died in the street. That has nothing to do with politics.
And in the other, and it also has everything to do with politics, in that being political and voting can help to kind of improve the situation that causes that. And I think a lot of people also are always pandering about their thoughts and their leanings, but what's really important is action and
Agreed.
And donating or doing something.
Agreed.
Wow. I want to go back to what you said about introverts benefiting from online education.
Yes.
I heard about this book. I want to read it, called Quiet. The Power of Introverts. Have you heard of that book?
I kind of want to say I have, but I'm going to say no. I kind of, you kind of
Okay.
remember something, but I'm going to say no.
I'm kind of like you in that I'm extroverted, but I also need that time and space to recoup. And I love just being on my own and I was always a kid that could entertain myself.
Yes.
My mother says my sister always needed someone to play with, but I always entertained myself.
Yep.
But why do you think virtual education is kind of better for more introverted students? How does that?
I wouldn't put it in those terms. I
Okay.
wouldn't say better for more introverted students. I think it's a good option for all students.
Sure, sure.
But speaking from myself as an introvert, it would have been awesome for me. And that's just because I can learn by myself.
Okay.
You know,
The self-paced aspect of it, or?
well, yeah, not even that, because just because you're introvert doesn't mean you're self-motivated. Right. I think those are two separate things. So it doesn't mean like you're like, yeah, let's go, I want to learn. Like, but are you an intrinsic learner? It doesn't automatically mean that.
True.
But it does mean that I can learn in the safety and comfort of my area. I can set my classroom up the way I want to set it up. I can set my schedule up the way I want to set it up. So if I do need that time for introspection, I can have that time. If I want to, I was always the one working on group projects. And anytime my teacher would say group project, I was the one groaning and rolling my eyes because I like stuff done my way and I want to do it my way and I want to turn it in when I want to turn it in. I want to get done when I want to get it done. So not to say I'm not a team player, even though that sounds like I'm absolutely not a team player. But so I think just that kind of aspect to it where you can take control over your own learning is awesome. Not particularly for introverts, really just for any students to have that option.
I see. That makes sense. I mean, you could say introverts maybe like to have a little bit more control over their environment, maybe. And extroverts like to be more involved with their environment and kind of.
I wouldn't even say that because I feel like extroverts also want control over their environment because they want the control over like how they can express themselves. So I don't know. I think that this type of learning would lean more to introverts just because it is more of a solitary way of learning versus a group learning. And that's where extroverts thrive in groups where introverts do not. Or at least need time away. I shouldn't say they don't thrive in groups, but they need time away from a group to recharge. So that's why I would say that. Because when you're in the school day, from 6:30 or whatever time you start school to 2:45 or 3 or 4, you don't have that much time away from other people. You don't have time to recharge. And don't even put on top of that, like doing stuff after school and doing stuff before school and doing stuff during lunch. And so you really don't have that time away as an introvert. And I feel like online learning gives you that option.
There's definitely more or less side conversations in my online classes.
Right.
On mute. So it's hard too for kids when they're used to social interaction. I have seniors this year and it's their senior year of high school and they're going to be online maybe all year. And they just started clubs this week, clubs and different groups and activities virtually.
Okay.
So that's great. And I try to encourage, we do actually, I do 4 days a week of live class and 2 of the days we do breakout rooms and we just do 15, 20 minutes working in your group and they get to talk and turn on their camera and mic and it's great interaction. I think some students are really starving for that. And some students are not missing it. It just depends on the person, really.
Right. And I think, like I tell my teachers when I'm teaching distance learning, that like we have to, where classroom management and the organization of your class just needs to be modified for online, but it still has to be in existence. You can't just completely drop the management aspect of it. The instructional aspect has to change. You cannot teach the same way you did in person. It's just not logistically possible. So, and that's one of the things we talk about, is that every single class period has to have a time for student collaboration. It just does. Because even if you think like, oh, when I was teaching in front of the classroom, I did lecture all day Monday, and then Tuesday we did. Well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but even while you were doing that lecture, students were still interacting. You may have not thought they were, but they were. They were looking at each other, they were passing notes, they might have been texting each other when you didn't see. Like, they were having interaction. You can't do that online. So you can't, you just, it's not good. It's not good to just not let them interact with each other and interact with the content on their own. That's when you learn, is when you interact with it.
It's weird because we only have 40 minutes for our live class 4 days a week. So we do mainly assign 2 days a week for lecture, but I do try to have them do a chat prompt. We do mic off, speak up, where I randomly choose 6 students every time we have lecture to share with the warm up. So there is some talking out loud and interaction and answering questions, but it is a lot of front loading in math too. Sometimes. So, and when we go back to in person, I want to keep that group work structure, and that'll be great to have interaction again when we someday go back.
Right.
I can imagine it's going to be so weird too.
So when you're teaching on those 4 days, are you teaching the same lesson, the same content?
No, for the 2 different like lecture days in the week, we there's 2 different lectures, so it's, different math concepts. And then on the 2 group work days that are in between, we have like lecture, group work. So we just review on the group work days, or interact with the material, answer review questions together as a group, and then they fill out a Google form with their answers. And I give them an extra credit point if they get them all right.
Gotcha.
Motivating.
Yeah, I know it's easier to do with some contents, than others. Yeah, but we kind of looked at the 30-minute lesson structure, where you do like 10 to 15 minutes in the base lecture, and then you do the 10 minutes of like the students interacting and actually interacting with the content, and then the 5 minutes after that of wrapping up and the beginning and all that kind of stuff. And then when you go to the second day, your lecture time gets a little smaller, the interaction time gets a little bigger, and you just kind of keep going. But that's with, like you were saying, that's like with teaching the same content for at least 2 days. You can kind of do that a little bit more. So I think
Yeah, and then I know that integrating technology is very important to you. So, but you mostly taught English language arts when you were a classroom teacher, is that correct? So how do you model integrating technology across disciplines, like for math and science, being from an ELA background?
Well, when I was in the actual classroom, I was a ELA teacher for middle and high school. And then when I became a librarian, I dealt with all content levels. So that's when I helped all teachers in all content levels. And then being a district instructional and technology supervisor, I mainly dealt with the administrations at the different schools, and got more into the leadership role of how a school is run and things like that. But yeah, so I think just from my experience with that, and looking at being in, because even now I go to with my job with a nonprofit in Louisiana, we go to a lot of schools and do needs assessments and a lot of observations and things like that. I'm able to see like what's really going on in the classrooms, how I can help, just using my experience with the teachers that I've dealt with, looking at best practices of what's happening with technology integration. Technology is not the answer to everything. It's just not. I think a lot of us try to make it that way, but it's not. You know, technology is a tool, just like any other tool in a teacher's arsenal. It's not the end all be all magic blue pill solution. So, you know, I like to tell my teachers, if you don't have a purpose for using the technology, don't use it. Like, just using it as a replacement for paper and pencil, like, just use paper and pencil if that's the case. But when you actually have a goal in mind, I don't care what content this is, when you actually have a goal in mind of using technology to achieve this particular goal, then it's going to be more useful. And you're actually going to be teaching your students not just your content, not just technology kind of in isolation, but you're going to be teaching it to them together. Like, this is how you actually use it to solve this problem. And I think that's what we need more of in education, no matter what the content area.
So we have this online assessment tool called Myopenmath, and I love it because it rearranges the questions and gives different numbers to different students, so there's less cheating.
Okay.
And I feel like when we go back to in-person, I might still use it. I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to have, you know, more authentic responses from students. So given your definition of using the technology with a purpose, I think I wouldn't feel bad about still using that website and that technology if we go back to in-person.
Yeah, I'm hoping that teachers won't go back to in-person and just completely drop all of the best practices they learned by teaching virtually. I'm praying that's not in their mindset of like, oh, when I go back, I can just go do things exactly how I did them before.
Right.
Like, I'm praying not.
Right.
Because I mean, we are learning some good stuff. Now, some stuff we're gonna like drop and burn in a fire because we don't want to see it again. I understand.
Everybody on mute.
Right. You're muted, Johnny. Maybe we want to delete those from our mindsets. But I mean, we're learning some good stuff. We're learning what our students can do virtually. We're learning what our students can do with technology, hopefully. So yeah, we don't want to just cancel out everything.
No, definitely not. And one of the wonderful things I learned through distance teaching is I've started doing one-on-one meetings with students every month. Usually at my school, teachers have 6 classes they teach and 2 prep periods. So students have 8 periods.
Okay.
High school. But this year, because of distance teaching, we're doing a 4x4 where they're having 4 periods in the first semester, and then the other 4 periods they would have had, they're doing in the second semester. So they're having to finish the classes twice as fast.
Right.
But I have half the students.
Right.
So I have 81 students. So I'm trying to meet with them one-on-one on Zoom once a month for 5 minutes each. And it's just such a valuable way of connecting. I think that's something I'm going to keep when I go back to in-person, is scheduling somehow 5-minute meetings with every student at least every 2 months. Especially if it's a whole year class, then it could be every 2 months. And if I have twice as many students, it would have to be. But that's connecting and focusing on how to foster connections among students and with students is something I'll definitely keep.
Good. I'm loving that. Yeah, one of my high schools when I was in Texas did, I don't know what the like official name of it was, but it was like this big, just like banner paper, and it had every student's name on it. And it was a high school of 1,900 students or 18 something students. And they put all the students' names on it and they put stickers there. And it was like, if you've connected, not just if you've said hi and good morning, but if you've literally connected with this student, put a star by the student's name. And I was a librarian at that school. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is like something else for teachers to do. Like, right. And then the teacher's like, oh my gosh, whatever. And we were all just kind of like, whatever, sweetie, put a sticker on the board, whatever. And then after about 2 weeks, you know, we would go and look at the board and we realized how many students no adult on that campus was connecting to. And it was a real, I was like, oh my gosh, like I shouldn't have rolled my eyes. I was wrong. Cause you really saw, cause you're thinking like, okay, we connect with the kids. Everybody knows somebody. But we started seeing like how many students were walking on that campus that no adult was actually having a valid conversation with. And it was scary. It was scary, and it was eye-opening. So I think even like what you're saying, just, you don't know what that 5 minutes with that student is going to really do, to them and for them. And yeah, I mean, it's a powerful thing that we don't always think about.
Yeah, and something I also picked up from Dave Stuart Jr., I think his name is. He's a teacher, educator, blogger. Is I keep a chart with records of the last time I had an authentic connection to a student. And I put a date on the day that I did that. And I try to, have one at least every month with distance learning. But probably if I go back to in-person, it'll be hopefully more often than a month.
Right.
So it's not just the meetings, but also if I talk to them at the beginning of class, or if I connect with them in the breakout room, and it can be really easy to only connect with the students that are extroverted and speak up and ask questions. And you really have to make an effort to connect with all students, for sure. You never know how much that's going to mean to that student too. Yeah, like you were saying.
And connect positively to them.
Right,
like,
right.
It's very easy to dismiss like your class clown who you're always correcting, and you're like, no, I talk to him every day. Well, no, did you have a positive connect? Like, yeah, you told him to be quiet, you told him to stop doing that, you told him, I believe in you, I think you could do better, but did you actually have a connective conversation with that student? So, and it's hard to forget about them because you think like, I'm always calling his name, we're always talking. It's like, well, no, that's not, and it's hard. I mean, I've been in the classroom, it's not easy, right? But none of these things are like, just do it. No, it takes time. It's, it takes work, it takes heart, it takes dedication to do this. This is not easy. And I tell my teachers that even when I'm teaching them about technology and all this other stuff, like, this stuff isn't easy. Nobody's sitting there like, well, just do it and all your dreams and hopes will come true. No, it takes work. It's hard work, but that's what we signed up for. So we got to kind of.
It helps if you enjoy it, right?
Right. We got to kind of get up and do it.
And it's teaching is something where you can't really fake it. I feel like
they can tell.
You have to love the students, or
they can tell. They'll smell you out in like the first day of school. They can tell if you're there for like your minute paycheck, or you're there because you think it's easy. Like they can sniff you out so quickly. Yeah, there is no faking it till you make it in education. Like, you better just come prepared to do what you need to do. Like, it's not, they can sniff you out very quickly.
Definitely. And you taught middle school and high school, you said? Which one did you like better?
I am definitely a middle school person. That's I'm crazy. I always say you have to be a little insane to teach middle school and to like it, I guess, to like middle school. When I came out of my teacher prep program, I only wanted to teach seniors. I thought they were the only ones that could handle my intelligence. And I really did think that. I'm sure I've said it to people, like, they're the only ones that can handle me. So of course life hit me in the face and I ended up at a middle school. And it was actually a program where the college was connecting with this middle school that was in it was like an at-risk school. That actually had a magnet program, which is kind of odd, but it was an at-risk school in the local neighborhood right by the school, and they were getting kind of freshly picked teachers to kind of like, it was almost like Teach for America, like they're kind of like, just come teach for us for a year, and and I was kind of like, I'll come save your school. So I was like, I was so awesome. And I went there and they wanted me to teach history. And I was like, okay, I teach English, but okay. And then like the day before I started teaching, I heard the principal in the hallway and she was like, well, now we need an English teacher. And I was like, and then she's like, well, now we need a history teacher. So that's how I got in my content. So I was very excited about, I don't know where I would be today, but, and I taught them, and it was it was insane. It was awesome. You never know what to expect minute to minute. Also, I do have to say the first 2 years I was teaching at the school, I wasn't in the magnet program. And most of my students were, it was sixth grade, and most of my students were about 14 and up. So I wasn't really teaching a sixth grade population. I didn't know that. And I never had, I don't know, I just didn't know it. I was fresh out of college, people. But then the next year it went to an all magnet program. And I actually had like 10 and 11-year-olds. And I was like, what is this? Why are you so small? I don't know how to do a lock. I'm sure my poor kids, I love them to death. They're all like adults now. But it was a culture shock. I was like, why are you so short? Like, what's happening in here? And that was like, I feel like that was like my first true sixth grade. And then I've taught sixth grade, eighth grade, and high school, like introduction to high school, kind of remedial English. And then I was a librarian at a middle school and a high school. So I love both of them so much. But teaching, I have to say middle school, that's kind of all I've really, even though I taught in the high school, it still was kind of middle school, if that makes sense. So teaching that, and librarian, I couldn't choose. I won't choose, because they both were amazing. My high school is absolutely amazing. My middle schools are amazing. So I can't choose for being a librarian. They both were just amazing experiences.
That's awesome. I definitely would choose high school for teaching.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I was in a middle school last year for 1 year. Ooh.
What grade did you teach?
8th.
Okay, see?
So I mostly taught 9th grade before that. But when I moved to Vancouver, Washington, life happened and I ended up in a middle school and I taught 8th grade math. I was like, this is only 1 year different. It should be fine. Oh, yeah.
I'm like laughing at you. I'm like, no.
I like my high school a lot better. Definitely.
Yeah, high school, I like, just even the experience with the teachers, middle school was a little bit crazy, like just crazy, insane, and just like, wah! And high school are very much more like subdued, and this is my content area, leave me alone. Like, just leave me with my books and my knowledge.
My backpack is very
different mindset.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset.
Well,
I can't choose. I love my teachers and my students at both.
Even between the 9th graders and the 11th graders that I taught at the first high school, the 9th graders were like, different all the time, more like middle school, and the 11th graders are very sleepy all the time. And, and I thought, they'll just be like the 9th graders at this middle school and it'll be fine, but no.
It's a whole different mindset. And like, even like 6th grade, they're really kind of, one day they're babies, the next minute they're adults, the next minute they're monsters. You love them through it all. And my 8th graders were more like, we're running the school. We're about to leave this. Like, we're the, and I loved it. I love both of them. I don't deal with 7th graders.
Oh, really?
All the time. Like, no, 7th graders are monsters. I don't touch 7th grade. I always said I'm never going to touch 7th grade. I never have. I've stuck to my word. 7th graders.
When you were a librarian, how was it different from being a classroom teacher in terms of your relationships with students, and what were some of the unique rewards and challenges?
Well, how I describe it, especially to like new librarians, like some of the things to get kind of ready for and used to is when you're in the classroom, you're the mama. When you're in the library, you're the auntie. So it's a little bit different. It's a different dynamic. And it's something you mourn it. Like, you really do like, wait, like you kind of mourn the close relationship that you have with your students, because you're seeing them literally every day. You're seeing them in a certain, like, you're the mama and the daddy of that classroom, right? You're the head of it. And where being in the library, you're like one removed, right? Because they already have their mom and their dad. They're still in the classroom. So you're kind of like one removed, and you have to get that kind of in your mindset and be okay with it, and start to realize, like, well, how can I still make a difference for these students, and how can I still build those relationships for the students? So, one of the big things is you have to actually let them in the library. Like, I've been to schools where it's like, well, the library's closed. From this, like, well, why are you there? Like, you got to let them in the library. And you want to actually try to get them in the library, right? So, and just little things like, it's the only way you can build relationships with students if you can see the students and actually talk to the students. So, that's the biggest difference. When you talk about rewards, just like, I don't even want to like tear up, just all of it. I loved my time as a librarian. Just all of it, just introducing reading to so many students. And even though you're like, middle school, you're not introducing, high school, you're still introducing reading to a lot of students. Just introducing reading, actually listening to them about why they don't like to read, what they don't like to read, what they do like to read, all this stuff, and just picking books for them and like finding the right combination. One of the things I remember in my high school is that we had like really of a piss poor manga collection and graphic novel collection. And it's like, why are we not building this? Like, what if they want to read it? Like, what is your problem? Let them read it. So I built like this. I got a bookshelf, but I didn't do it. I hired people to build this bookshelf. And that whole wall was just manga and graphic novels. And this was all about it, as long as you're doing the research and making sure it's appropriate for your grade level, of course. Right. But go for like, what's the problem? I never understand that kind of pushback against like graphic novels and manga and audio books. I have people tell me that's not real reading. Why is it not real? Like, stop being stupid. You're not a real person. How about that? So, it's just idiotic, some of the mindsets we have. But yeah, so sorry, I'm getting all into my library stances now.
That's great.
But it's one, it really is a passion. I loved it so much. And that's what, doing that got me into technology and got me more into that area. So, yeah.
As a teacher who's never been a librarian, it's kind of a mystery to me what it's like to be a librarian and, how I can support librarians and things like that. So it's really interesting to hear your side of it and your perspective.
Oh, it's so different per campus. Because like, it all starts with the administration. Do you have what I like to call a librarian's principle that understands the library and understands what it can be? I've dealt with principals that actually tried to shut down the library and actually shut us down because we had too many kids in the library, and actually complained and made kids get a ticket to come to the library in the morning because there was just too many students. So it's just like, again, mindset. So it depends. That's where it starts. Like, do you have that librarian that's going to let you flourish and do stuff in the library? Like, your librarian and your library could be the strongest part of your school if you allow it. If you keep shutting stuff down and shutting him or her down, then yeah, it's going to be a piss poor library, and it's not going to be the heart of your school. That's what it should be. That should be the heart of your campus, where students want to be, where teachers want to be, where you can go get support, where you can go get help, where you can read and all this good stuff. But it depends on if that librarian is allowed to do that. And it breaks my heart when I hear about so many librarians being fired and libraries being shut down and only used as book carts. And that just tells me that you don't understand libraries. Like, you don't understand library science. You don't understand how amazing it really could be at your campus and how it can change the culture of your campuses. I've been at campuses where the library, I'm not tooting my own horn. Like, I had amazing librarian assistants. We changed the culture, of that library. People actually want to come and be there. And, students had a safe haven. They would say that, like, this is, where I can come to be safe. And so it's just, it can be so instrumental to a campus if it's allowed to be.
You have to trust your librarian. And
Trust your librarian and actually get a librarian.
yes.
Not just somebody off the street that you throw in the library because you're like, we need somebody to check out books.
Yeah, I mean, these days, is a librarian expected to also be a technological expert?
Again, depends on the campus. I think your librarian should be into technology. I think that's one of the roles of a librarian these days.
Okay.
But I mean, I know some librarians who kind of don't want to become techie and don't want to. I think it's a detriment to their campuses, and I'll tell them that to their face. I think that's part of the role of a library media specialist. So yeah. That's why I'll put my foot down on that one.
Can we talk about the myth of the superhero teacher and why it's so important now more than ever?
Yeah, it's one of those things where somebody gave me the term. I think I was on social media and they said, "Oh, it's toxic positivity," and I was like, "Oh, I like that." Toxic positivity. I was like, "Yeah, I like that term." But it's one of those things where it sounds really good until you dig deeper into it. And I mean, I used to bite. I used to drink the Kool-Aid. I was like, "Yeah, superhero teacher. Not everybody wears capes and all that. Superheroes don't work out and all that stuff." But I think it becomes toxic because we think that we have to actually be superheroes, and we're not. We're human beings. We have emotions, we have feelings. We actually need to eat and to use the restroom and to sleep and to talk to other adults. And guess what? That is okay. You should not be shamed for it. And I think it's one of those things where we get that in our mindset, like, oh, I'm supposed to be downgraded, right? I'm supposed to feel bad. And I hate to say it that way, but like, oh, is this part of being a teacher? No, it is not. It's not part of any profession to feel that way and to not be appreciated and to not be paid and to not be able to go to the restroom for 5 minutes. Like, that's not part of any profession. It shouldn't be part of teaching. And when we get this superhero mindset, we think it's okay, and it's not. So no, we're not superheroes. We're humans. We are professionals. We are degree professionals completing a job. We're not superheroes. No, we're not.
Do you feel like it's also kind of an American thing? Like, we're meant to be overworked all the time. It's kind of the American way. I mean, in other countries, they have other comparable countries have, vacation time and sick time. That's a little more, it's a little better, a little more equitable, stronger,
I would agree with that. I would agree that is the American way. I think it's part of our culture to sacrifice ourselves for our goals. Yeah, it's one of those things that I had to learn. And I'll tell people, it'll literally be 8:00 at night. And I'm like, well, I haven't eaten yet today. And they're like, oh, I'm like, no, that's not cute. That's stupid. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I'm trying to break that mold of like, oh, you're such a hard worker. Oh, you didn't eat that. No, that's stupid. As a 41-year-old adult that I didn't eat till 8:00 at night. That's not smart. It's not cute. It's not like, oh, look at me. That is stupid. And I'm telling you that I was stupid today because I did not take care of myself. So that's not a cute thing. I'm trying to break that mold in us as educators of finding that kind of stuff cute. I'm trying to break the mold of administrators thinking, oh my gosh, I used to hear this so much, like, well, Miss Hood was here till 8:00 last night. Her car was the last one in the parking lot, and she's the first one here at school. And maybe Miss Hood doesn't have a life. And maybe Miss Hood doesn't have internet at home, and so she's staying here to pay her bills and do all this other stuff. Like, what is she doing when she's here? I would love to know that. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, we gotta break this cycle of abuse that we celebrate in education. It's like, it's not okay. Like, as an administrator, I would be going to Miss Hood's class and be like, go home. Like, it will be here tomorrow, Miss Hood. Take care of yourself, not celebrating her in the staff meeting because she's spending her whole life at school. Like, stop with it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. The head of the math department, I used to stay late at my first job, and grading papers, and the head of the math department, who I was closer with than my actual administrator, of course. He would come in, he was a great leader, he would say, "Go home." And it was wonderful because I would be like, I can go home. Like, this is here tomorrow. I feel like I have to finish it.
No, it'll be here tomorrow. So I just want educators to take care of themselves. We are not superheroes.
Right.
You know, superheroes don't need to charge up. Like, you know, they don't need sleep and all that. Like we do. We are humans. And I get the mindset behind the superhero thing, because we are incredibly awesome. I'm not saying that. We are incredible human beings, but we're still human beings. And I think it's detrimental to, it's detrimental, but then it also makes you, if you really think about the psychology behind it, it also is very nefarious, because it's like, well, no, you're a superhero. You don't need money for your work, right? Yeah. You're a superhero. You don't need time off from your students, the ones that need you. Like, it's a very nefarious, like, don't think all this stuff came about, you know, for straight positivity, because it didn't. There's a very nefarious, you know, mindset that's being fed to us too. And it's like, no, yeah, I actually do want to get paid for my work. Imagine that.
I mean, we love our students and we want to change the world through them and everything, but we have limits and we have value.
There you go. It's just like, yeah, it angers me so when I, you know, and then especially since I had those glasses on too, right? And then when you take them off, you're like, well, I'll be like, yeah. So I'm just trying to break that mindset. Like, we need to protect ourselves while we're protecting our students.
Definitely. And also, we need to have, just with social emotional learning, especially in distance teaching, we've been doing a lot of trainings on allowing students to turn in work late and trying to understand where students are coming from. We have to apply that to ourselves too.
Yes.
Yeah.
At like 100%, absolutely. And hopefully our administrators are also applying that to their faculties and staffs as well.
Right.
I mean, I've seen some amazing administrators, you know, step up and just go, hey, I need just like this, the teachers are protecting the socio-emotional of their students, they're protecting the socio-emotional of their teachers. And I love it. Of course, not everybody, but when is it everybody, right? But
right.
But I've seen some amazing stuff. So I hate when we get this us versus them mentality when it comes to administrators and teachers and teachers and students and teachers and parents, and you know, just gotta work together. And I know that's very Pollyanna, but we have to work together. It's the only way this is going to work.
And we're all on the same team, so
right. I mean, if we're not, we need to question ourselves, like, what is our goal here?
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the wrap-up questions. We've already been talking for an hour.
Yay.
Very good, very good. The first one, there's 4. The first one is, what is the skill or quality that you are most proud of in yourself?
Oh, I was like, in who? I was like, who am I talking about? In myself, I guess it would be, I don't know if it's really I guess it's more of a quality. I'm very type A, and that allows me to get a lot done in like an hour or a day or whatever set of time, just because I really strongly believe in organization, and that everything has a place and everything has a, you know, prioritizing, deadlines, all that kind of stuff. I'm very stringent with myself more than anybody else with those kind of things. That can, just like any quality, can be a detriment as well, because it's hard to relax. It's hard to not, like you said, like, it's hard to say, well, no, that paper does have to be graded today because I said that it had to be graded today. And it's already 10 o'clock at night and your eyes are closing and you're about to get sick and you haven't eaten. That's when it turns to like, okay, you need some help. Like, you need to turn this off in whatever way you can. So it's one of those qualities where just throughout my life, I have seen the positive and the negative to it. And not many people see the downside to that kind of personality. They're like, oh, so awesome, you get so much done, you know? Like, yeah, but yeah, there's a downside to it too.
I think every quality in its extreme, it can be negative.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that kind of answers number 2, which is, what is a skill or quality you plan to work on?
Taking care of myself. I think I preach a good game and I don't do it. And that's a lot of us. We can say it and we can tell other people to do it and we can wag our fingers and, you know, make sure they take care of themselves and we don't take care of ourselves. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me. I have gotten a little bit better with that throughout the months of distance learning. Like at the beginning, I was like, it was like whole days would go by, honestly, and I would be sitting at this computer and it was getting unsustainable. Like it was getting a little ridiculous. So like I put an out of office message on my email. You'll be getting responded to in 2 weeks. That was a big like weight lifted. Just like little things like that, but I would have never done, like clutch your pearls before, you know, March. That you just learning, like you just gotta do it. You just have to do it to take care of yourself. And just realizing that everything does not have to be done by this time. Because just like the 50,000 times before that you said it had to get done and it didn't, and then it got done and everything was rosy, same thing. So I'm just starting to tell myself that more, like, no, sit and watch that Netflix show. You sit and you watch it. And then you can get back to this other stuff plan. So just like, I'm hoping to get better with that.
I need to get better with, you know, responding to students at 9 o'clock at night on Remind 101.
No, stop it.
It's like, I have email on my phone. I have Remind 101 on my phone. I have Canvas on my phone, which is really convenient. But then I need to set like phone hours for myself or something.
Seriously, like again, it's easy for us to say, but then we don't do it. So yeah, like I want to actually stay on here and keep it recording, but I do it now. Set the phone. Like we're gonna sit here and watch you do it. You know, but it's the truth. Like we say we're gonna do this stuff and we never do. So do it.
I don't know if I actually want to do it though.
You don't, or you would have been done.
I could try it for like a week and see if I like it or not.
Yeah. If you honestly, truly want to do it, it would have been done.
Yeah.
Let's be honest with ourselves. So, so it's until you get to that point where you're like, I'm honestly going to do this to help myself out, then it'll get done. So one of the things I did was I turned off, my phone is forever on silent, not buzzing, and my friends know if you call me, I'll see it in about 5 minutes. I'm always checking my phone, but just I started noticing it was just so much less stress. Yeah. Because every time it would go, I would, and even if I wouldn't answer it, I would still like look like it still was like my.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to do, I'm not there yet, is to turn off notifications, like even the little like numbers and stuff,
badges.
I'm not there yet. That's my next thing, to just like turn it off. You don't need to know it's one. When you click on it, you'll see it. Turn it off.
Yeah, I turned off previews. You know what previews? You're not.
Oh, that's smart.
I only see badges, no noises or sounds either. It only rings with a phone call, and I don't answer phone calls anyways because I have a small business, a tutoring business, and I get a lot of spam calls.
Me too.
I don't really, you know, I don't answer a lot of the phone calls anyways. I just keep it on silent most of the time.
Gotcha. Yeah, we gotta get better.
So number 3 is, what does your self-care routine consist of?
The Office. No. I don't really have a self-care routine. I'm trying to get on one. I think the last time I did have a self-care routine, I would wake up at 4 and exercise because it was better to do it. Because you always get busy and there's always an excuse in the afternoon. And so I wake up at 4, everything is quiet, nobody's buzzing for you. You know, the emails that are there is going to be there at 5. So you just exercise, and then I just started my day, and it lifted my mood, and I was getting really, you know, just good with self-control. And I would go to bed by 8:30. I wanted to be in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to be sleeping, but I needed to be like starting to decompress because it takes me a while to decompress.
Me too.
And then if the news came on at 10, I knew that you're about to be in trouble. You need to go to sleep. Like, you're in trouble, girl. Go to sleep because you're not gonna be able to get up at 4. So when the news came on, I was like, oh no, I gotta go to sleep. But that was a great self-care routine. And some like didn't eat after 6.
Yeah.
Made sure that I like I had some kind of like TV watching or just something that I like completely enjoyed. So that was the last time I was actually on a routine. And I think one of my biggest detriments is that I actually like working.
Me too.
So like I get joy from responding to people and checking emails.
But that's good. And it's extreme, of course.
Right. That's the thing. Like, it's good until you're dead. Like, it's good until you're like, then you're snapping at people because then it's not good because you're not enjoying it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So what's on Netflix these days for you?
I'm actually watching right now, right before this, The Haunting of Bly Manor, because I watched The Haunting of Hill House and absolutely loved it. So I'm on the last episode. I turned it off to come here, and I was like, you have something to look forward to when you leave. You're into
like a horror series, or?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be. It's not like true horror. I like horror stuff, so it's not like true horror. But it's like slow burn horror. It's not. I wouldn't even call it horror. It's like slow burn, scary.
I like Ghost Adventures just because it's silly.
Oh, well, then you'll love this. It's all about it's all about spirits and ghosts in the house.
Oh,
it's a haunted house.
But it's fiction?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, completely fiction. We think. No, it's completely fiction.
But Ghost Adventure is kind of like a documentary.
Yeah, no, this is complete fiction.
Okay.
It's really not. It's not scary, y'all.
I don't know. I get startled and scared very easily.
Yeah, my 2 best friends do as well. Like they like some stuff. I'm just like, don't watch it. That's not for you. But this I wouldn't like. It's not scary. It's more like, I hate to say intellectual. It's more like figuring out like, why did this happen to this person? Like, what's behind it? It's very storytelling. It's very character driven. It's not really horror, but I love them.
I'm gonna check it out. Sounds good. So where can people find out more about you?
At Educator Alexander. Woohoo! So educatoralexander.com is my website. On YouTube it's Educator Alexander, and I post videos. I actually have 5 videos to do, probably after Bly Manor. So I do 5-minute tips at least. I try to do it once a week, but sometimes I just double up and do them all in 1 week. But it's a really good channel to just get some quick tips and things like that. All my free webinars that I do on the weekends that you can find out about on educatoralexander.com are posted on the YouTube channel. On Twitter, I'm at Educator Alex, because they wouldn't let me do my whole name. So put like right here, Educator Alex on Twitter. and then all other social media, I'm Educator Alexander.
My brother always says he wishes people would just have the same handle for all the sites.
I tried, brother.
It's possible.
I
tried too, and it's hard. So
it's hard, yeah, because they'll like limit your words. So I'm Educator Alexander on everything except for Twitter, which is like my main. That's my main thing that I use. So it's kind of.
I love Twitter for education stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my main.
Great. Well, thank you, Desiree, so much for talking with me today. It was a real pleasure, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too. Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. It was painless. It was actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye. Your time is valuable. Thank you for spending some of it listening to teachers of all kinds. If you know anyone who would enjoy being a guest, please send them my way. It's a great time. Thanks again for listening, and have the best week. I'm Mrs. Hood, and I'll see you next time on TAC.